Welcome to another Bible in a Year for June 16th through the 30th. I'm just going to work my way through these different readings, sections that are listed below. So your Second Kings 22, 11 through Chronicles, actually the whole book of First Chronicles. So the Second Kings that we're kind of Josiah. He tears his garments and he recognizes we haven't been doing things as God has asked us. So it's reform, but it's not enough. We heard Manasseh, previous to him, Josiah, kind of set Judah on a collision course, essentially. The temple gets destroyed by the Babylonians in the 587, and then there's the deportation. So kind of the end of Jerusalem. It seems like, great, all the kingdom is destroyed. And then we move right into Chronicles. And Chronicles, actually the Greek title is Paralipomenon, which means actually things left over. So it actually is going to recount, you could say, the kingdoms of David and then the kings all the way up to the destruction, essentially. But it gives this long genealogy. The first handful of books, like 10 chapters or so, Chronicles goes through these genealogies of different tribes, the importance of all the tribes that are in union, and then the Levites in particular worship. There's a strong focus in Chronicles of the importance of worship. This kingdom of David that God establishes with David isn't like another king. It's kind of primarily to bring people to worship God. And every time there's major threats is when they turn back to God and to worship Him that He delivers them. So you could say turning to the Lord for spiritual strength, really the importance of David's line, and then the priesthood, the Levites, in liturgy, worship. That's really a big theme in First and Second Chronicles. It's really giving that angle of the different kings of. There's some redundancy with kings, but there are a couple of things that are different. But yeah, the first Chronicles here is going to really a lot of genealogies, kind of the tribes. It's going to go from Adam all the way down to where they're at with kind of the exile, coming back from the exile. And so it's recounting. So if you get really there's a lot of names in here, it's probably just better just to scan over them. Don't think, well, I didn't read it if I didn't read every little name. It's better just to slowly scan over, just see the names, because some of them make you think, oh, I've seen that name before, or that one. Oh, that is that person that's been mentioned. That's probably the best way to see go through the genealogies instead of hurting yourself trying to pronounce all these names. And let's see here. So that's where we'll get there. The Psalms, any of the Psalms, the last 11 Psalms, 139 to 150, are very much focused on praise. That's kind of the common theme, you could say, of those Psalms, really ones of praise and adoration of the Lord. And then we move into Proverbs, one of the wisdom literature. Psalms is part of the wisdom literature. Normally we think of, it's just a bunch of songs and prayers, but prayer is part of living a wise life, is to pray. But Proverbs is going to go much more into nuggets of wisdom and the importance of living wise. So we can live wise, or we can live foolishly, and then the consequences of either one. So, and then John chapter 20, we begin with the New Testament readings. It'll be John's account of the resurrection, his appearances to Mary Magdalene, the apostles, breathing on them for the forgiveness of sins, Thomas, who wasn't there, who doubts, Jesus generally rise unless I see him with my own eyes. And then the commission of Peter, with the kind of being commissioned by Jesus to feed his sheep, his lambs. And then we move into Acts, which Acts was written by the human author. God's the author of all, the divine author, the primary author, but the human author of Acts is Luke. It has a very similar style to the Gospel of Luke, and Luke was a companion of Paul. And so as the book moves in, kind of chapter 9 to 10, 12, it kind of essentially the latter half of the book is essentially focused on Paul and his journey. And Luke was one of Paul's companions, kind of who took notes. But Acts will go through the ascension, Pentecost. Peter plays a predominant role, especially early on in Acts. And then there'll be deacons that they appoint. Stephen, he'll be first martyr, and then kind of the section for this week, or these 2 weeks will kind of end with the deacon Philip, how the Lord is working through him. So those are the kind of overview. I think Chronicles is, most people haven't maybe even heard of that book, but it gives a very a liturgical understanding of the kingdom. It's God established a kingdom not just to bring a people, but for them to turn to Him, to worship, to adore Him. And we see David sets up all these singers and stuff. It's kind of the idea of praising the Lord and having this routine of chanting and such of the Psalms. David kind of is very important of what David did. And when Israel then turns away from worshiping God and being faithful to that, that's when they go south. That's when things go bad. So please send your questions to me after the end of this. So July 1st, you can start sending me the questions for anything in these two weeks of readings. And more happy, look forward to seeing your questions and posting those answers then online. God bless.